dawn broke after that horrific night. Military convoys rolled into the wind farm. Scientists, officials, and entire squads of soldiers combed through the wreckage. What they found confirmed our worst fears. The claw marks on the turbines weren't random. They matched old classified files from a laboratory that had once operated deep underground in that region. The records spoke of genetic experiments, creatures designed as biological weapons decades ago, abandoned when the project was shut down. Everyone believed they had been destroyed, but the mountains had hidden the truth. The operation that followed was massive. Choppers circled the skies. Tanks rolled through the valleys. Night after night, soldiers flushed the creatures from caves and forests. Entire nests were burned. Reports claimed all hostile entities neutralized, and for a while people believed it. Months later, the site was declared safe. A new security team was deployed, this time heavier, stronger, with state-of-the-art weapons. Among them were the two survivors of that first night, me and Daniel. We had scars both outside and inside, but when the authorities asked us to return, we agreed. Maybe it was duty, maybe it was the need for answers. Either way, we came back to those hills. At first, everything seemed different. The broken windows were replaced. The blood-stained walls had been scrubbed clean. New guards walked the grounds with calm confidence. They laughed, smoked, and joked about the ghost stories of last year. But for us, the silence was never normal again. We knew what silence could hide. It was a cold night in early winter when I felt it again, the kind of pressure in the air that makes your chest heavy. I stood outside the control shack listening. The turbines spun lazily, the same mechanical hum as always, but beneath it there was something else, a faint scrape like claws against stone, then a breath, deep, wet, heavy. I froze. Daniel caught my eye from across the yard. He had heard it too. We told the others, but they laughed. Relax, one said, you've just got ghosts in your head. But later that same night, we found something on the edge of the perimeter fence, a print, large, misshapen, with claws sunk deep into the frozen mud. We didn't sleep after that. The following nights grew heavier, not with noise, but with the weight of silence. On patrol, the new guards joked less. Even the bravest ones began to glance over their shoulders when the turbines cast long skeletal shadows under the moon. Small things started happening. Tools left in the workshop were found bent or broken. Power in Sector 3 would flicker every night at the exact same time. One morning, the outer fence had been torn, not cut, not broken, but peeled apart like soft tin. The men blamed the wind, but Daniel and I knew better. It began around midnight. I was walking past Turbine 12 when I heard it, a low dragging noise. Metal on gravel, slow, deliberate. Daniel, I whispered into the radio. I hear it too, he answered, his voice tight. The noise circled around us like something pacing just outside the reach of the floodlights. Every time I turned my torch, the sound shifted to the opposite side. The other guards rushed out with rifles, their boots crunching on gravel, but the moment they arrived, the noise stopped. Silence again. By dawn, the team decided to search the area around the turbines. Near Turbine 17, the same place where I'd once seen the claw marks, we found something new. The soil was disturbed, not just footprints this time, but drag marks. Like something massive had crawled across the ground, pulling its weight with claws, and deeper in the dirt, bones, fresh, split open, marrow sucked dry. No one laughed anymore after that. That night, the guards doubled the patrols. Floodlights swept the hills, cutting through the fog. Rifles were kept loaded, fingers on triggers, but the creatures were patient. They waited, and we could feel them waiting just beyond the fence, just beyond the dark. Daniel whispered to me as we stood under a spinning turbine, its blades groaning in the cold wind. They never left. We didn't kill them all. I didn't answer because in my chest I already knew he was right. The first attack came just before 3 a.m. One of the perimeter alarms screamed to life, red lights flashing across the compound. Guards rushed to their posts, rifles raised. Through the fog, I saw the fence shudder, then collapse like paper. Something came through. It moved low, fast, and heavy, claws ripping the dirt. The floodlights caught only glimpses, pale skin stretched too tight, limbs too long, jaws opening wider than they should. Gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes lit the night. The thing shrieked, a guttural tearing sound that made the turbines tremble. Another shadow burst through the breach, then another. There weren't just one or two left, there were dozens. I fired until the rifle clicked empty, ears ringing from the chaos. Daniel grabbed my arm. Fall back, control shack. We sprinted, dodging between turbines as the creatures tore into the guards. I saw one man dragged screaming into the fog, his voice cut off in an instant. Another tried to climb a turbine ladder only to be ripped down, his blood spraying across the white steel. Inside the shack, radios buzzed with overlapping screams. Sector 2 breached. They're inside the yard, then only static. Daniel slammed the steel door shut and shoved a bar across it. My hands shook as I reloaded. The sound outside was worse than silence now. It was claws on metal, roars, and the sickening crunch of bones. One of the floodlights went dark, then another. The creatures were tearing them down. The shadows grew deeper. The turbines groaned above us, their blades spinning faster in the rising wind, as if the whole mountain was waking with the monsters. Daniel's face was pale in the emergency lights. They were never gone, he whispered. They were waiting for us to come back. And then boom. The wall shook as something massive slammed against it. Dust rained from the ceiling. Another hit, and another. The door buckled. The creatures wanted in. The yard looked like a battlefield. Smoke from shattered floodlights still hung in the freezing air, and the metallic scent of blood clung to everything. A few guards, those who hadn't been ripped apart, were stumbling back toward the control shack, pale, bleeding, clutching each other's arms for balance. Daniel and I dragged one of them. Harris, I think, by his vest. His chest plate was torn open like paper, but he was still breathing, gasping, whispering a prayer under his breath. Inside the shack, the survivors huddled together. 6 of us left, maybe 7, faces gray, hands shaking, rifles clutched like lifelines. Nobody spoke for a long time. The silence was broken only by the distant creak of a turbine and the hiss of the emergency generator kicking in. Finally, one of the younger guards muttered, "What the hell are those things? Wolves don't do that. Nothing does." Daniel slammed a bloody fist on the table. "They're not wolves. They're not animals. We told you. They never killed them all. They've been waiting." The radio crackled but gave nothing but static. No backup, no help. We were alone. Harris coughed, blood on his lips. "They're circling," he rasped. "They're not done." I pressed my back against the cold wall, heart pounding so hard it hurt. He was right. Out there beyond the fences, the shadows moved. You could feel them, watching, waiting, testing. Then came the sound. Not claws this time, not growls. It was knocking, a slow, deliberate knock on the metal walls of the shack. 1, 2, 3. The guards froze. Nobody moved. Then another knock came from the opposite wall, then another from the roof. The creatures weren't just waiting anymore. They were playing with us. Daniel raised his rifle, eyes blazing. "They're toying with us," he whispered. "And when they're done..." Before he could finish, the lights flickered again, plunging the shack into shadows. The knocking echoed through the shack, each strike slower, heavier, more mocking than the last. A few of the guards broke, screaming curses and firing blindly into the walls. The deafening shots lit up the room in flashes, but when the smoke cleared, nothing, just dents and steel. Daniel grabbed the radio again, twisting dials, slamming the side of the unit in desperation. "Command, do you read? This is Delta Post at Wind Farm. We are under attack. Repeat, under, static." I pushed past him and tried the satellite phone. Dead signal, no bars. "What the hell?" one of the guards muttered, fumbling with his own comms. Every device read the same, no service. "Maybe they're jamming us," another said, his voice cracking. Daniel shook his head. His eyes were sharp, wild. "No, look at the tower." Through the cracked window, lit faintly by the sweeping floodlights, we saw it. The main comms tower, less than 100 yards away, leaned at a sick angle. Its base was torn open like something massive had clawed through the steel. The beacon at its top, once blinking red every night, was nothing but twisted metal. "They cut us off," Harris wheezed, clutching his wound. They knew. The realization hit like ice in my veins. These weren't just monsters. They were learning, watching, waiting, and now they were controlling the game. The younger guard started to cry, hands trembling on his rifle. "We're finished. No one even knows we're here." Then outside, the turbines began to slow. One by one their blades ground to a halt. The sound of spinning metal, the one constant in this place, was gone. The silence that followed was unbearable. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of the hunt. Daniel's voice cut through the dark. "Everyone arm up. They're not going to wait much longer." We braced for an immediate assault, but it didn't come. The minutes crawled by, every shadow outside stretching like claws across the frozen dirt. 2 guards, Martinez and O'Connor, volunteered to check the perimeter. They argued it was better to know what we were facing than sit blind in a steel box waiting to die. Daniel tried to stop them, but their pride got the better of them. 5 minutes, Martinez said, loading a fresh mag. "If we're not back, you know what to do." I watched through the cracked window as their flashlights cut across the yard, small beams swallowed by the fog. Their boots crunched on the gravel, fading until only the pulse of their radios remained. We listened in silence, static, a muffled curse. Then, "Jesus Christ." Martinez's voice snapped through the radio, cut with ragged breathing. "They're here. There." A sharp crack, the sound of bones snapping. O'Connor screamed, his rifle going off in wild bursts. The shots echoed, ricocheted, then ended in a wet gargle. Silence. Daniel tried to call them back, voice shaking. "Martinez. O'Connor. Report." Nothing, just the faint hiss of static. Then the radios went dead, both at once. One of the younger guards vomited in the corner. Harris sat slumped against the wall, whispering prayers through clenched teeth. I pressed my face to the window again, trying to pierce the fog, and that's when I saw it. One of their flashlights, not dropped, not broken. It was moving, dragged slowly across the ground, the beam tilting up and down like a pendulum, vanishing into the mist. I pulled back instantly. My throat went dry. "They're playing with us," I whispered. Daniel just nodded. His jaw was set tight, but his eyes told me he knew. The hunt had already begun. We couldn't stay inside. The shack felt like a coffin waiting to be nailed shut. Daniel barked orders, pulling the remaining guards together. "Grab your gear. We move now. We're not waiting for the next hit." No one argued. Boots slammed against the floor, rifles loaded, safety clicks echoing like a countdown to execution. We pushed into the freezing night, the fog curling around us like smoke from an unseen fire. Floodlights flickered overhead, every few seconds dimming just enough to blur the shadows between the turbines. Daniel led us toward the central yard where the ground opened into a wide circle of concrete. From there we could cover more angles. The guards formed a rough perimeter, weapons sweeping, hearts pounding loud enough to feel in the air. "Try the comms again," Daniel ordered. One of the techs slammed his hand on the console strapped to his chest. Static, then silence. He switched channels. Nothing. "The tower's down," he muttered, pale as chalk, either fried or ripped apart. A low groan carried across the yard. Not human, long wet, like the earth itself was breathing. Everyone froze. Fingers tightened on triggers. Then something thudded nearby. Heavy, close. The younger guard swung his rifle toward the sound. His beam cut through the fog and landed on the fence. The steel mesh had been shredded wide open, jagged edges bent outward, like something had come through and was still inside the perimeter. Before anyone could speak, a voice crackled through Daniel's radio. Not Martinez, not O'Connor. A whisper, slow, mocking, hungry. The radio burst into static, then went dead. Every man in the yard shifted back, shoulders pressing together. The silence stretched so tight it hurt to breathe. Daniel raised his rifle. "They're not hunting the turbines this time," he said. "They're hunting us." The first scream tore through the fog before we even saw it. One of the guards on the perimeter vanished, dragged into the mist so fast his rifle clattered to the ground before he could even fire. The sound of bones snapping echoed sharp and wet. "Contact," Daniel roared. Floodlights cut across the yard, slicing the fog into strips of light and shadow. And in those shadows they moved, dozens of them, low to the ground, long-limbed, their eyes burning red like coals in a furnace. They came fast, faster than we remembered. Muzzles flashed. The yard exploded with gunfire, bullets ripped through the fog, sparks flying as they struck turbine legs. And for a moment it felt like maybe we could hold them. Then one leapt straight into the circle of guards. Its claws tore a man open chest to stomach in a single swipe. Blood sprayed across the concrete as the other staggered back, firing wildly. Another soldier was tackled to the ground, his screams cut off as teeth sank into his throat. "Hold the line," Daniel shouted, emptying his rifle into the nearest creature. Its body jerked under the impacts, but still kept crawling forward until a final headshot dropped it. But for every one that fell, two more appeared. The fog was alive with their shapes, slashing, lunging, tearing. I fired until my rifle clicked empty, then slammed another magazine in with shaking hands. My ears rang from the chaos. Gunfire, shrieks, the turbines groaning overhead. One of the beasts barreled into me, knocking me off my feet. Its breath was hot and foul, its teeth snapping inches from my face. I shoved my pistol up and fired 3 times. Black blood sprayed across my jacket as the thing collapsed, twitching. I scrambled up, chest heaving, and realized the perimeter was broken. The guards were scattered, backs against turbines, fighting in pockets. The ambush wasn't random. They were pushing us, hurting us, straight toward the broken fence. "Daniel," I shouted, firing into the fog. "They're driving us out." He turned, his face pale under the floodlight. "They don't want the turbines, they want the town." The yard was a slaughterhouse. Bodies lay torn and broken across the concrete, rifles smoking in dead hands. The fog boiled with movement, claws scraping against steel, eyes glowing like embers. And then it was just us, me and Daniel. Our magazines were nearly empty. My hands shook as I jammed in the last clip, blood slick on my fingers. Daniel leaned against a turbine, chest heaving, his rifle barrel glowing hot from nonstop fire. The creatures circled, dozens of them, red eyes flashing, teeth glistening in the floodlights. They could have rushed us at once, but they didn't. They were waiting, enjoying it. "Not like this," Daniel muttered. His face was pale, but his jaw clenched like stone. "We're not going down like this." That's when I saw it. The fuel drum stacked near the generator shed, diesel enough to light the whole yard like a funeral pyre. I grabbed Daniel's shoulder and whispered, "The tanks." His eyes flicked to the barrels, then back to me. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he gave a single sharp nod. We ran, claws scraped behind us, snarls rising like a storm. One of the creatures leapt, slamming into the dirt where we'd been a heartbeat before. I spun and fired point blank into its face, teeth and black ichor spraying across the ground. Daniel reached the tanks first, yanking free a flare from his vest. His rifle barked in short bursts as he covered me. "Get them closer," he shouted. I screamed into the fog, emptying my rifle. The flashes drew the creatures in, dozens of them charging, howling, clawing over each other in their frenzy. Their shadows loomed massive against the turbine blades, stretching like monsters in the floodlight glare. Daniel lit the flare. Its red fire painted his face wild and desperate. "Now!" We threw it. The flare arced through the air and landed in the puddle of diesel spreading from a ruptured drum. The world erupted. Flames roared skyward. A wave of fire engulfing the creatures as they lunged. Screeches ripped the night as their bodies ignited, writhing silhouettes thrashing in the inferno. The blast rocked the turbines, sending shards of metal flying. We fell back, heat scorching our faces, as the yard became a burning battlefield. But they kept coming, even burning, even broken. They came. One of them, half its face charred black, crawled through the fire straight at me. I drew my sidearm and emptied it into the monster's skull until it finally collapsed, smoke rising from its carcass. Daniel grabbed a jerrycan, smashed it open, and hurled it into another pack. The explosion tore them apart in a spray of flame and flesh. All night it went like that. Fire, gunfire, screams. The turbines spun above us, their blades glowing orange in the firelight, groaning like giants in agony. By the time my rifle clicked empty for the last time, the eastern horizon was bleeding with light. The creatures faltered. Their shrieks turned to howls of pain as the sun's first rays cut through the smoke, one by one. They hissed, shrieked, and bolted, limping, crawling, dragging themselves back into the forests, into the caves, into the dark. The yard fell silent save for the crackle of flames and the hiss of burning diesel. I collapsed to my knees, lungs burning, ears ringing. Daniel dropped beside me, his uniform scorched, blood drying on his face. We were alive. Barely. The fire had taken most of them. The sun had driven the rest away. But as the wind carried the smoke toward the tree line, I saw it. Claw marks, fresh and deep, leading back into the woods. They weren't all dead. They never would be. Daniel met my eyes, his voice hoarse but steady. This isn't over. Not until every last one of them is gone. And as the morning light washed over the burning turbines, I knew he was right. The yard was nothing but fire and ash. Smoke curled around the turbines like black ghosts, their blades still turning slow and heavy in the morning wind. Bodies both human and not lay scattered in the mud. Me and Daniel stood side by side, rifles empty, faces burned, clothes torn. Somehow, against all odds, we were still breathing. But when I looked at the tree line, I saw movement. Not many, just shadows slipping back into the forest, wounded, hiding, waiting. The soldiers had once said it was finished, that every creature was dead. But I knew the truth now. The fire and the sun had only bought us time. They weren't gone. Not yet. Daniel's voice broke the silence, rough and low. They'll come again. I nodded. My hand shook, not from fear, but from knowing he was right. This was never just survival. It was a war, and it wasn't over. Not here, not tonight, not ever.